Damaged to death. Early in the morning, the bell rang in my house. My sister called. Tanya, I think I've lost my mind. So, I thought, I don't like it anymore. And out loud I said, tell me, what happened to you again? It all started about 2 months before the events described. First, Anna had a dream that a demon had moved into her husband Vasya, but she managed to save herself and her children. Of course, I reassured her then, saying that it was just a dream, realistic, but still a dream. Yes, and she herself then understood this, only now the nightmares continued to torment her every day. Because of these nightmares, Anya became twitchy, nervous, and hardly slept. Having a 1-year-old son in her arms, the sister quickly got tired, but she could not rest. One night, Anya saw in reality a dead woman trying to throw mud at her children, but this time she managed to save the children. Even after Anya saw horses in her house and clearly heard the clatter of hooves, we tried to find a logical explanation for what was happening and attribute everything to chronic lack of sleep. And then there was that ill-fated evening that turned our world upside down. It was a normal Saturday, bath day. A large number of relatives gathered at Anna's house to take water procedures. And then one of our little nephews, in broad daylight, saw a dead man lying on the bed. Moreover, Sergei had never been to a funeral before, and could not know how the dead people lay in the coffin. And that's when we got really scared. After that day, the ghosts became frequent guests of Anna. Even I could feel their presence. My sister could not sleep alone in her house, her husband was on a business trip, and therefore I spent the night with her. And now, almost falling asleep, I felt someone's embrace. It was very creepy. I started to pray, and after a while everything disappeared. Something had to be done about this. I found a woman who knew how to remove damage. For some reason, we immediately understood who wished harm to my sister. The fortune teller explained that they did damage to death, and they did not do it themselves, but also through a fortune teller. And Anya saw ghosts, so they came to warn. And when Anya did not react, the ghosts attacked my nephew and me. Zana, that was the name of the fortuneteller, asked for 12 kilograms of products for the ritual, of which 4 kilograms of fresh meat, to make a sacrifice to ransom from death. Yes, a ransom from death, since just such damage was made on Anya. For 3 days, Jean treated Anya. For 3 days she poured wax and sacrificed to the spirits. And after all, she made an amulet so that no one else could harm Anya. For the first time in 2 months, my sister slept soundly, and I was glad that everything was over and infinitely grateful to our Savior. Pour on the Dead. In 1992, I was only 7 years old. But I still remember the mystical incident that happened then. My grandfather was very sick. He was taken to the hospital again. We often visited him, even though the hospital was quite far away. But at that time, my parents did not take me. They said that grandfather was already better, and they would let him go home for the weekend. It was already cold outside. I remember how I sat with my grandmother in the kitchen, she stoked the stove. And then suddenly our dog began to howl in the yard. Grandma and I ran outside. The dog huddled in the booth, trembling and howling. I remember how my grandmother returned to the kitchen, sat down on a chair and said, "Okay, it's all over now." 2 hours later, my parents arrived. They said something to my grandmother. She wept. It turned out that my grandfather had died. There lived then a black and white cat Vasca. Everyone liked to sleep near the stove. And then suddenly he disappeared. He was gone for 3 days. Funeral. The whole street came to say goodbye to grandfather. And then suddenly our cat, whom he loved very much, appeared on the threshold of the house and literally howled. I didn't even know cats could make sounds like that. The cat stood at the door until the relatives went to the cemetery. I gave him milk, put sausages, and he did not even come to the food. And after the funeral, he disappeared. We never saw him again.